Hey everybody, today I'm going to teach you how to make smoother skin in Photoshop. Now you may want to use this technique for instance for your toy project to start to give yourself smoother skin, or you may see this fit to use down the line when you're outside of our Photoshop class and when you start doing and using Photoshop in the real world. Alright, so what I have here is my emo picture of myself that I kind of have already photoshopped to kind of accentuate my pores and my skin and whatnot. And you can see, let me zoom in really close, you can see all the damage in my skin and the pores and the highlights and the spots here and there that need to be adjusted. So if I'm going to make myself a toy, we want to make ourselves look plastic. And the first step is we really need to know what a plastic toy looks like. So what I've done is I've bookmarked Blythe doll. I don't know if this is how you say it. B-L-T or B-L-Y the doll. And what you can find here is a lot of different styles of dolls. Now these are really cool because they kind of show extremely plasticky skin. Now let's get in there. You can see it's really smooth and it still holds skin tone in a sense, but that's somewhat what we want to do with my skin, at least make it flat and smooth and not have a lot of texture to it. So let's get started. Alright, the first thing you need to do for these methods I'm going to show you is have obviously a self-portrait of yourself. That's what this assignment for Project 3 is going to be about. So what we're going to do is take our background image here, which is me. I'm going to unlock it and call it myself. And I'm going to go ahead and drag that into a new group. And I'm going to name that group Originals. Okay. And make sure that's in the group. Perfect. I'm going to duplicate myself and put it outside of that group. And the reason I want to do this is mainly because I want a clean image of myself. And I can say smooth start here. Now, as long as you guys name your layers, I'm happy. I just don't want to see layer 1 or layer 1 copy, things like that. Alright, so here are the techniques for my smoothing tip. And I'm going to show you two different ways to smooth today. Mind you, there are 100 different ways to do things in Photoshop, so if you go on YouTube you may find a whole slew of different ways other than what I've shown you to do this. Alright, so for what you're going to need is you're going to need 2 copies of your face. So we're going to call this one Smooth Effects, and I just drag that to the new layer. Alright, once I have these, I need to set that Smooth Effects layer from normal mode to the blending mode vivid light. And what we're going to get is this very, very dramatic lighting here. Do not fret. We're going to adjust this as we go on. Okay, now once I have this blending mode, the next step for me is to go to Image, Adjustments, Invert. Now yes, we are going to do this non-destructively, but that's okay. I will show you why in a bit. So Edit, Adjust, or Image, Adjustments, Invert. Image, Adjustments, Invert. And we get a very faint outline of our image now. And you can see my head is in there. It's just very, very faint. The next step, after I invert it, is I want to go to Filter. Now you can do this non-destructively using smart filters. But for our sake, I'm going to just kind of hop already into it and destructively edit this. So I'm going to go to Blur, and I'm going to go to Gaussian Blur. And I want to use Gaussian Blur until, basically, yours may start out like this, until I get an outline of my face. Now I don't want to push it too much. I don't want this. This is bad. But I want just enough that it looks kind of like my face has been like etched in a piece of metal or something. So just the edges will start to appear, which is really, really good stuff. Okay, when I get it, remember that number. This is kind of helpful. I'm going to put mine to about 5. Yours will be different because of, obviously, your face is different than mine. I'm going to hit OK. And once I have OK, I've just done Invert, then Gaussian Blur, and next I'm going to do something called a high pass. Now normally a high pass is for extreme sharpening, but what we're going to use it for is blurring our image. We're actually going to use it for the opposite, believe it or not. So I'm going to go to Filter once more, I'm going to go to Other, and then I'm going to go to High Pass. I'm going to hit OK. And the trick here is usually what we want to do is, you can see it's really blurring our image. We want to blur it till the texture of our skin is kind of gone. And a good rule of thumb is at least it needs to double. So if my Gaussian blur was 5, I usually make my radius about double that, so 10. And you can get away with going a little bit higher, but again, when you start seeing these edges this way, you've gone too far. So be very, very careful. Now, do not worry about the eyes. Do not worry about any weirdness in the background. We're going to kind of use this to our advantage in a second. So even though you're blurring the eyes out, just really worry about this skin texture right here. Alright, so I'm going to hit OK. And now I've just done my smoothing effects. Well, yeah, it looks pretty smooth. It looks pretty cloudy. But only problem is it's smooth all over. So we need a way to isolate the smoothness on specific parts of the face, which is, in our case, our skin. So a way to isolate a part of a layer is, well, a layer mask. So I'm going to go ahead and make a layer mask. And what I'm going to do is add a layer mask, and I'm going to fill it with black. So I hit Command Delete to fill it with black, being that I already have black in my background here. Alright, once that's filled with black, the really next easy step is to go and find a very soft brush. Scale that brush rather big. Make sure you have white on your layer mask, or excuse me, on your colors. If you need to reset your colors, you can hit D as in Dombrowski on your keyboard, or hit X to switch them. And what you'll notice if we start painting in this layer mask now, watch this, it's kind of an instant smoothing. Now all the pores will not go away, but what will happen as you see me paint on top of this is we get a pretty even skin tone. Okay, and make sure you always adjust your brush size. Do not get lazy and try to use one brush size. But what will happen is we'll lose some wrinkles, and we'll lose some other stuff involved in on this, and we can just kind of paint away. Again, I avoid usually the lips. I avoid going over the eyes. What I want is just the areas that are flat skin. Maybe get here the neck. And I'm going to show you when I'm done painting this the differences that this can add. Get a little smaller here. Paint the ear. We just want very flat skin. Now let's look at our mask for a second. Pretty good, right? Kind of looks like our face. That means we must be doing the right thing. Whoops, make sure you paint on your mask. Don't make the mistake I just did. Alright, so we're painting. It's looking pretty smooth. Now let's look at this before and after. This is me before. This is me after. Before, after, before, after. A lot nicer, wouldn't you say? Now, I do have some minor pores that I still have on my face. Now, there are ways around this. At this point, you can do a mega flatten, so Command, Option, Shift, E, and I can call this Airbrush. And I can create a layer above here and get my paintbrush. Now, using opacity, I'm going to set my brush pretty low. I'm going to set it to 20% here. And I'm going to go ahead and highlight specific areas of my face holding Alt. Now, with your brush mode activated, Alt or Option on your Mac will actually let you pick the color underneath it. And here, you can paint over that area. Make sure you're painting on layer 1. We'll just say this is color. Now 20 may be too much. Let's go all the way up to 100 for demo purposes so you can see what's going on. What I'm doing is actually painting these areas with a soft brush. So you don't want 100 obviously, because then it's going to look pretty gnarly, right? Let's go up to 60. I changed this to 60, and what I can do is, making sure it's a very soft brush, kind of begin to paint away. Now if 60 is too much, let's go down to 30. There we go. 30 seems to be doing it on my face. Holding Alt. And this will allow me just to gently cover up some areas of imperfection. Again, maybe the pores on my nose. And always change your brush. You have to fit it to fit those highlights. May have some pores right here on my face. Alright, paint away. There we go, and so forth. And again, if I zoom out, it looks a little harsh right here. I have some work to do still, but I can start painting those away. Now, that's normally what we had to do when we were in CS4. CS5 has given us a new cool tool to work with. And that tool, and I'm going to make a new layer, I'm going to call this Mix Brush. This is under the brush panel in CS5. You'll notice you have your mixer brush. And this is the brush with a kind of a teardrop or paint drop tool on top of it. The mixer brush is very, very neat. What the mixer brush will actually do, it acts just like your normal brush, but it will allow you to push pixels around on your scene. So I'm going to sample all layers and watch what happens. Now I love to use wet heavy mix. That's the one I always use. And I push to make sure these two buttons are pressed in. What this button does is load the brush after each stroke, and this button will actually clean it, so you're not dragging colors around from everywhere you sample. Sample all layers is on, and keep these all default. Now watch what happens with this. What I can do is it will actually create a digital painting for me. It pulls the layers underneath it and acts as a kind of a smudge tool or a blur tool. And if I do many clicks, you can see it kind of holds the skin tone pretty well. Again, I'm not holding down my mouse button here. I'm specifically clicking my mouse button and dragging in the contour of the face. I don't want to go up and down. I want to kind of follow the structure of the face tone, kind of like you guys would do in your drawing classes. So we're drawing here on the face. Here we go. Maybe we'll draw right here. And what we're doing is basically converting all those colors. It's kind of doing the step I showed you beforehand with the Alt tool, but it's converting all these colors into a painting, which is really extremely helpful, especially for those of you who want to learn how to digitally paint. This is a great reference to kind of use and maybe even put an underpainting down using this. So I'm going through now. We don't want to make our picture look too painterly. Remember, this is supposed to look like a toy in reality. But again, this should help us along the way just a little bit to kind of bring it up to smoothness, okay? And just going in here and putting some final touches on it. Of course, you guys would be a lot more gentle around your hairlines. You don't want to pull that hair in. If I do this, you can see I pulled the hair in over there, and I don't want that. But always follow the contour of the skin. Click. You can. I don't know if you guys can hear my mouse button, but I'm clicking quite often. Every pull of the brush, I actually let go of my mouse. And when we get to where we like it, definitely not that, we are good. So we start to get a flat feel. Now, we have options here. You can see the difference before and after. We're trying to flatten it out. I still would need to blur this area out. I may attempt to try blurring this whole layer. Sometimes you can really mess it up that way. I do have a blur tool, which is right here. I have a smudge tool that also helps. The blur tool is kind of nice because I can sit here and actually blur specific areas. Maybe I can airbrush on top of that. The smudge tool is kind of like what the mixer brush is now, but a little less complex. It physically will grab those, and you can see it pulls those. And it actually has quite a delay to it. So be careful with that. But this is a very good start to get smooth skin. You can see where we had it before here and where we had it after. Okay? And you want to attempt again to blur or shade some of these in and blend them in as best as possible. I've just done a quick reference here for you of this blending, but you can see even just with my skin method minus the mixer brush, it's a lot smoother than my original face was. So again, take a look there. Alright guys, this is how you smooth your skin using a couple different methods here: airbrushing, mixer brushing if you have CS5, and also this good old smooth effect that I use quite often. Alright,